I am not a man who speaks easily. That is the simple fact at the center of this story. Everything else, the letters, the years, the particular Saturday afternoon when she found the box in the study, follows from that one fact like water follows a slope. You understand the water when you understand the shape of the ground beneath it. My name is Thomas Ashe. I am a land surveyor by profession, which suits me better than most professions suit most people. Precise work, patient work, the kind that rewards attention and punishes assumptions. You go out to the land with your instruments and you measure what is actually there, not what you expect to find, and you record it honestly and you let the numbers speak. I have always found this more reliable than most other forms of communication. I have always been better with numbers than words. Her name was Margot Ellis. She had been my neighbor for 11 years. She moved into Wren Cottage the autumn I turned 28, arriving with a hired cart, a significant quantity of books, and a tortoiseshell cat who regarded the move with the philosophical detachment of an animal that has decided all locations are essentially equivalent. The cottage was small, the garden was overgrown with the particular determination of plants that have had a year unsupervised, and she appeared to regard both of these things as projects rather than problems. I watched her from the lane the first afternoon. She was carrying boxes from the cart to the front door, back and forth, with a steady efficiency that suggested she had estimated the number of trips required and was executing the plan without deviation. She didn't ask for help from the driver, who was leaning against the cart doing nothing. She didn't ask for help from me, though I was visible in the lane and the boxes were clearly heavy. She moved with the self-sufficiency of someone who had been managing alone long enough to stop expecting otherwise. I nearly offered anyway. I thought about it specifically. Walked half a step toward the gate, stopped. I told myself it would be intrusive, that she hadn't asked, that it was presumptuous to assume she needed it. I told myself a lot of things over the 11 years that followed. I got very good at it. She was a botanical illustrator. She worked from the garden and from the fields and occasionally from the greenhouse she built in her second year at the cottage, which she constructed largely herself over 3 consecutive weekends with reference to a single library book and an admirable disregard for the possibility that the project might fail. I watched the greenhouse go up over those weekends from the footpath along the boundary hedge. She had measured the foundation twice and still got the first course of brickwork slightly off level, which I noticed from the footpath on a Saturday morning and said nothing about because she was already correcting it. When she got the glass panes wrong the first time and had to take them out and redo them on the third Sunday, she used a word I pretended not to hear and which made me want to laugh and which I filed away carefully. She sold her illustrations to publishers and natural history societies and occasionally to private collectors who wanted something specific from a specific location. I knew this because she was an occasional topic of conversation in the village, where she was liked without being especially knowable, present at the right occasions, friendly without being intimate, the kind of person a small community appreciates because they contribute without requiring management. She was at the summer fete. She bought from the local shops. She attended the harvest service and nodded to people she recognized and did not stay long afterward. I was the same, or tried to be. We had what I suppose could be called a neighborly relationship. We spoke when we encountered each other at the lane boundary in the mornings, or in the village, or on the footpath along the lower fields. Brief, pleasant exchanges about the weather and the state of the path and whether the autumn had come early. Once a year, approximately, she would knock at my door to ask if I had seen her cat, who was an adventurous animal with no regard for boundary conventions, and I would have, because the cat treated the edge of our adjoining properties as theoretical and spent at least 3 days a week on my side of it. I would tell her where I'd last seen it, and she would thank me, and we would stand in the lane for a moment, and the moment would stretch slightly, the way moments stretch when two people have run out of the thing they came to say and are deciding whether there's anything else, and I would think of half a dozen things I might say and say none of them. This is how it went for 11 years. I want to be honest about those 11 years, not to make them sound worse than they were, because they were not bad years. I had work I found genuinely satisfying. Survey commissions that took me across the county and occasionally further, measuring and recording and producing the precise, documented truth of what was where and by how much. Good colleagues, a house I had built into something comfortable over the years, the right books, the right chair, a garden that I kept in order without finding it interesting, which is its own kind of satisfaction. I had enough. It had one absence in it. I had made my peace with the absence, or I had told myself I had made my peace with it, which is not the same thing, though I did not fully understand the difference until it became impossible to ignore. What I could not say out loud, I wrote down. I don't know exactly when it started. The first letter I have found is dated 4 months after she moved in. I don't remember the decision to write it. I remember finding it one morning, written on 2 pages in my survey notebook, tucked between the working notes for a road boundary commission I'd been doing in the valley. It was about the greenhouse, about watching her figure out the glass panes on a Sunday morning from the footpath, about the words she'd used when she got it wrong and how it had made me want to laugh and how I had not laughed, had stood there on the footpath doing nothing with a laugh held quietly inside my chest. I folded the pages carefully and put them in the bottom drawer of my study desk and told myself that was the end of it. It was not the end of it. Over the following 11 years, I wrote approximately 200 letters. I am a methodical person by nature, and I had not intended to be methodical about this, but eventually the letters accumulated enough that I needed somewhere to keep them. And so I put them in a wooden document box, the kind I used for storing survey work, solid oak with brass fittings built to last. And I kept the box in the lower cabinet of my study desk, where I kept things I needed to retain but not look at regularly. I did not reread them. Writing them had been enough, a pressure valve or something like it. The things I could not say in the lane or at the village, or in the annual 5 minutes when I was standing in her doorway telling her about her cat, found their way onto paper, and the paper went into the box, and the box went in the cabinet, and I got on with my work. Each letter was dated. Each one was addressed to her by name. None were sent. They covered 11 years of ordinary things. The greenhouse in its second summer, covered in whatever she was growing that season, which changed annually. The way she walked the field path in autumn, her coat too light for the weather, and no apparent concern about it. The particular quality of her attention when she was talking about something she cared about. The way she leaned forward slightly and her voice dropped rather than rose, which was the opposite of most people and which I found, consistently, the most interesting thing in any room. Her cat, and its territorial ambitions, and the particular look she had when she came to the door, and I told her where it had been this time. A kind of resigned affection for the animal's character that I understood completely. The letters were longer in the winters. I noticed this at some point, that the short gray days produced more pages. I did not examine why. By the 11th year, I had a complete and detailed record of someone I had never managed to know properly through any normal means. It was, I understood at some level, an absurd situation. 2 people separated by a boundary hedge and 11 years of insufficient conversations. I had surveyed hundreds of miles of land and could not cover the 30 feet to her front door with anything useful to say. The 11th autumn, she came to the door on a Saturday morning in October. Not about the cat. The cat had died the previous winter. She had a new one now, a gray animal of stricter disposition who did not share its predecessor's views on property and had never once set foot on my side of the hedge. She came because she had found a survey marker on the edge of her kitchen garden that she didn't recognize. A small iron pin driven into the ground at the boundary, painted red, partially hidden by the growth of the previous summer. She wanted to know if it was mine and whether it needed to be there. It was mine, an old one from a boundary commission 8 years prior that I'd forgotten to retrieve when the work was finished. I apologized and pulled it out of the ground and put it in my coat pocket. We were standing at the edge of her kitchen garden. The October light was good, low and clear, the kitchen garden in its end-of-season state. The last of the climbing plants coming down, the beds being cleared. She had clearly been working in it when she found the pin. Her gloves were tucked in her apron pocket. I should have left at that point. The business was concluded. Instead, she asked me about the commission, what it had been for, how a survey boundary marker worked. She asked, with the genuine curiosity of someone who was actually interested rather than being polite, and I answered. And she asked a follow-up question, and I answered that, and the kitchen garden in the October morning turned into half an hour without my noticing. When her kettle began to whistle through the kitchen window, she looked at the house and then at me. "Tea?" she said, simply, as though we had done this before. "Yes," I said, simply, as though I had not spent 11 years thinking of what to say and not saying it. We had tea at her kitchen table. Then we talked for 2 hours about the village, about the boundary commission, about the lower field that had been flooding every third year in the heavy autumn, and what a proper drainage survey might show. She had opinions about the flooding that were, I realized, was something between amusement and a kind of recognition, essentially correct. She had been watching the field and the water flow for years and had arrived at reasonable conclusions through careful observation. I told her she was right. She looked at me. "You could have mentioned that years ago," she said. "We didn't talk much years ago," I said. "No," she said. "We didn't." She looked at her tea. "Whose fault was that?" she asked, genuinely curious, not accusing. "Mine," I said. Honestly. She looked at me for a moment. "Mine too," she said. After that, we talked more. Nothing was decided or announced, no declarations were made, but I started stopping at the lane when she was working in the front garden, and the stopping turned into talking, and the talking turned into longer talking. She started coming to my side of the hedge occasionally when she had a question about something to do with the land, which happened more often than the land strictly required. Saturdays sometimes had tea, then Thursdays also. Then sometimes there was no tea, but I was at her kitchen table anyway, looking at the botanical illustrations spread across it, asking about a plant she was working on, and she was explaining what the commission required and asking whether I thought the scale worked. By February, I understood that I'd been wrong about having made my peace. I had not made peace with anything. I had built a very orderly life around the absence and mistaken the orderliness for acceptance. The orderly life had been, it turned out, the most elaborate possible way of doing nothing. I did not do anything about this understanding. I had the understanding and I kept it, and I continued having tea at her kitchen table on Thursdays and sometimes Saturdays, and I said nothing that I hadn't been saying for 11 years, because the stakes had become, by that point, too large to risk on words that might come out wrong. The Saturday in March came as a result of a practical request. She needed help moving a cabinet in her sitting room. Solid oak, inherited, too heavy for one person, and she wanted it against the east wall instead of the north wall because she had decided the room needed to be rearranged and the cabinet was the obstacle. Nothing complicated. I came over on a Tuesday afternoon. We moved the cabinet. In the clearing of the space behind it, she found a catalog from the seed merchant she had illustrated for 2 years prior, which had slid behind the cabinet at some point and been lost, now 3 seasons out of date. She flipped through it, shaking her head. "I need a proper system for storing things," she said. "Everything I actually need, I can never find." "I have a system," I said. "It works." "Show me," she said. "Come Saturday and show me." I came on Saturday. She had cleared the study desk in preparation, which was an optimistic gesture given the general state of the study. The study was organized in the way of someone with a good memory and no filing system. Stacks of finished illustrations in varying states of completion, reference books left open to pages consulted months ago, correspondence in loose piles that were probably internally sorted by some logic that existed only in her memory. I had brought several document boxes from my study, flat ones for the illustrations, smaller ones for correspondence, a wooden box of the older style that I used for survey records. We were making progress on the illustrations when she reached across the desk for the wooden box. She picked it up to move it out of the way. Then she stopped. "This is nice," she said. "Old?" "Fairly," I said. "I use it for—" I stopped. She looked at the box, then at me. My face had done something. I don't know what exactly. I have never been good at knowing what my face is doing, but whatever it did, it was enough. "Thomas," she said. I said nothing. She opened the box. She did not read immediately. She lifted the top letter and looked at the date on it, then the next. She went to the bottom of the stack and found the first one and looked at that date. 4 months after she had moved into the cottage, 11 years ago. She looked at the dates along the top of the stack. A letter a month, sometimes more, occasionally less. "How many?" she said. Quietly, I told her. She was very still. Then she said, without looking up from the box, "How long?" I looked at her face turned down toward 11 years of things I had written and filed and never sent. "Since the beginning," I said. She looked up. Her expression was not what I had been braced for. I had prepared myself for discomfort, for the careful recalibration of a person who has discovered they have been the subject of someone else's private attention for a decade and doesn't know how to feel about it. For pity, which would have been the worst. That was not what was in her face. What was in her face was something much simpler and more complicated than any of those things. The expression of someone who has received an answer to a question they had almost stopped believing they'd ever get. She set the box down very carefully on the cleared desk. "I have been trying to find reasons to come to your door for 3 years," she said. "Since we started talking properly, genuine reasons, practical ones, but reasons I was looking for. The survey marker, the cabinet, this." She looked at the study around them. All of it was real. I genuinely needed the cabinet moved, but I would have found something else if I hadn't. I looked at her. "You didn't have to find reasons," I said. "I know that now," she said. She looked at the box. "I didn't know what you were doing. I didn't know if I was—" She paused. "I didn't know if what I was feeling was something that made sense to feel or something I should set aside." "What were you feeling?" I said. She looked at me. "That the tea was the best part of the week," she said, "and that the Lane conversations were never long enough, and that I had spent 11 years living 30 feet from someone I wanted to know properly and kept finding reasons why the time wasn't right. The reasons were real," she said, "or they felt real, but they were also convenient. They let me not do the thing I was afraid of doing." I looked at the box of letters on the desk. "I understand that," I said. "I know you do," she said. "That's what the letters say." I crossed the study toward her, and she did not move back, and I met her halfway and stopped close enough that I could see the particular quality of her attention that I had been cataloging for 11 years and was finally, for the first time, the subject of Without a Hedge between us. "I should have said something years ago," I said. "You should have," she agreed. "I was afraid of being wrong," I said. "So was I," she said. We stood in the study with the Saturday light coming through the window and 11 years between us and everything that had been held carefully in a wooden box now out in the air. The spring was good that year. Mild, early, the kind of spring that earns its reputation. She read the letters over the course of several weeks. She did this privately and told me only that she had, and once said only, "You noticed everything." "I always noticed everything," I said. "I know," she said. That's what the letters say. The cat, the gray one, the strict one, developed a grudging tolerance for my presence in the cottage kitchen. This was interpreted by both of us as a significant endorsement. The lower field drainage was surveyed and addressed in April. I wrote the report. She had been right about the cause, which I noted in the report with attribution, which made her give me the particular look she gave when I did something that surprised her. Not often, but enough. By summer, the cottage and my house had a relationship that was hard to define precisely, except that it involved both of us using both kitchens, and the boundary hedge had effectively ceased to function as a boundary. We walked the field path in September, the same path I'd walked for 11 years, watching her walk it from a careful distance, the same path, different entirely. She stopped at the stile where the path crossed into the lower field. I want to ask you something, she said. All right, I said. She looked at the field, at the drainage channel running clear and clean along the edge of it. The letters, she said. Did writing them help? I thought about it honestly. Yes, I said. And no. Yes, because, she said. Because they went somewhere, I said. The things I couldn't say out loud went onto paper, and that was better than nowhere. And no, because? Because paper isn't the same as here, I said. I looked at her. Nothing I wrote was the same as standing in the lane with you for 5 minutes, even the best letter. She looked at the field for a moment. I wish you had sent one, she said. Even one. I know, I said. I was a coward about it. You were afraid, she said. That's different. I considered this. I'm not sure it is, I said. She looked at me. You're harder on yourself than the evidence requires, she said. That's what the letters say too, I said. She almost smiled. The real kind, not the managed kind. I know, she said. I've read them. The autumn came. The field path was good in the autumn light, the way it was always good, the way I had always known it was good and had walked it mostly alone. The hedge between our properties had been cut back on both sides, and there was now a gap in it, properly edged, wide enough to walk through without ducking. Neither of us had discussed making the gap. It had appeared one Saturday when she was trimming her side, and I was trimming mine, and we had both, without speaking about it, trimmed toward the middle. That was how most things had happened between us. Not decided, just arrived at. By two people moving in the same direction from opposite sides of a hedge. We were in her kitchen one evening in October when she picked up the wooden box from the shelf where she had put it. She had kept it. I had expected her to return it. It was mine, technically. And she had kept it without comment and put it on the study shelf, and I had not said anything about this. She turned it over in her hands. The brass fittings, the old wood worn smooth. This is a good box, she said. It is, I said. It was meant for survey records, she said. Yes, I said. She set it back on the shelf. It did its job, she said. I looked at her. I'm not sure that's what it was for, I said. She looked at the box. It kept things safe until they could be said out loud, she said. That's what it was for. I thought about that. Yes, I said. I think that's right. She turned from the shelf. The kitchen was warm. The cat was on the windowsill, pretending to ignore us with the transparent concentration of an animal that is actually paying close attention. Outside the window, the garden was going into its autumn, the last color holding in the hedge and the rowan tree at the back. She crossed the kitchen and sat down across from me at the table. I want to say something, she said. All right, I said. I've been thinking about the 11 years, she said. Not with regret exactly, or not only with regret. I've been thinking about what they were. What were they? I said. She was quiet for a moment. They were the time it took, she said, for both of us to be ready. I wasn't ready 11 years ago. I didn't know what I wanted or where I was going or who I was outside of the work. She paused. I needed the 11 years, the cottage, and the greenhouse, and the illustrations, and learning to be somewhere properly before I let someone else into it. She looked at the table. "I think you needed them too," she said. "Even if neither of us would have chosen to need them." I thought about it honestly. "Yes," I said. "Probably. So not wasted," she said. "Not wasted," I agreed. "Just long," she said. "Just long," I said. She looked up. "We're here now," she said. "We're here now," I said. Outside the kitchen window, the garden held its color in the October dusk, and the cat on the windowsill gave up pretending and curled into its own warmth, and the hedge between our properties had a gap in it that neither of us had decided to make, and both of us had made anyway. The numbers, it turned out, had been speaking all along, 11 years of them, patient and precise, the way good numbers are. I'd simply needed to learn, finally, to read them out loud. And she had been waiting in her cottage 30 feet away through a hedge to hear exactly that. The winter that followed was the first winter in 11 years that felt different on the Boundary side. Not because anything dramatic had changed in the physical arrangement of our lives. The cottage was still the cottage, my house still my house. The hedge between them now, with its gap cut properly through, wide enough to walk without ducking. The land survey business continued. Her illustration commissions continued. The cat continued to regard me with the philosophical suspicion it reserved for anyone who was not her. What was different was the quality of the ordinary days. I had not known before what the ordinary days could feel like when the absence in them was filled. I had thought I knew. I had been wrong. The Thursday teas were the same table and the same kitchen and different entirely. Not because we said different things. We talked about the same things we had always talked about, the land and the light and what she was working on and what the drainage survey had shown in the lower field. But the weight behind the talking was different. The things unsaid were different things now. Smaller things. Things that could wait. She showed me the illustrations as she worked on them. This was new. Before, I had seen the finished ones occasionally when she was explaining a commission. Now I saw them in process, the pencil underdrawing the first wash of color, the second pass where the detail came in. She talked through what she was doing and what she was trying to do, and occasionally what was not working and why. "You are my best critic," she said, one Thursday in November, looking at a half-finished plate of something in the Carrot family. "I don't know anything about illustration," I said. "You know when something's wrong," she said. "And you say so. Most people don't say so. Most people don't want to tell you something you've worked on is wrong," I said. She looked at the illustration. "I need to know when something is wrong," she said. "How else do I fix it?" "That is how you are about everything," I said. She looked at me. "Yes," she said. "It is?" A pause. "You too," she said. I thought about it. "Yes," I said. "I suppose so." She went back to the illustration, added a line, looked at it. "That's why it works," she said. Simply, like a conclusion reached, I looked at her. I thought that was probably the truest thing either of us had said about it. The winter deepened into January, and the field path was muddy and sometimes frosted over, and we walked it anyway. The lower field drainage was doing what it was supposed to do, and the channels ran clear, and I had written a report confirming her original assessment of the cause, attributed correctly, which she had read and set aside without comment, and which I knew she had been pleased about because she was pleased about things being recorded accurately, especially when she was the one being recorded. February brought the Seed Merchant Commission, the new one. Better subjects this time. Hedgerow plants and wild herbs, which interested her more than the previous series. She worked from the garden and from the fields, and occasionally brought specimens inside to work from in better light, and the kitchen table had a specimen jar on it most of February and into March, which the cat investigated once and then ignored. I found her one Sunday afternoon in February in the gap in the hedge, not going through it, standing in it, looking at the garden on my side and then back at the cottage on hers. "What are you doing?" I said. She looked at me, slightly caught. "Thinking," she said. "About what?" "About the fact that this gap has been here since October, and I still think of it as the gap in the hedge, rather than just the way through," she said. She paused. "I wonder when that will change." "When it's been there long enough to be normal," I said, "rather than new." She thought about that. "How long does that take?" she said. I considered it. "Longer than it should," I said, "for people like us." She looked at me. "People who are slow," she said. "People who need time to trust what's in front of them," I said. She was quiet for a moment. The gap in the hedge had frost on the cut edges. The February light was thin and clear, and the garden on my side was winter bare, and the cottage on hers had smoke from the kitchen chimney and the smell of something in the oven. "I think we are getting faster," she said. "Than 11 years?" I said. "Considerably faster than 11 years," she said. The real smile. Both versions. The one that came before, and then the thing itself. I looked at her standing in the gap in the hedge in the February light. "Come through," I said. She came through. The spring arrived, and the illustrations for the seed merchant were finished and delivered, and the commission was well received. She was already talking about the next one, a private collector who wanted a series on the flora of the limestone valleys, which would require some travel and which she was planning with the systematic pleasure she brought to things she was genuinely looking forward to. She invited me to come for part of it. I said yes before she had finished asking. She looked at me. "You didn't think about it," she said. "I didn't need to," I said. She was quiet for a moment. "That's new," she said. "For both of us," I said. She thought about this. "Yes," she said, "for both of us." The summer came, and the hedge between our properties was maintained on both sides, and the gap through it was maintained most carefully of all, the edges kept clean. The path through it worn clear by regular use. The cat from the cottage had begun cautiously to cross through it occasionally, which was understood by both of us as the highest available form of endorsement. I found the letters once more in the autumn, the wooden box on the study shelf where she had kept it. She was out. I stood in the study and held the box and thought about 11 years of Saturday mornings and boundary lanes and the particular architecture of two people talking around the thing they meant for so long that they almost didn't know how to talk about it directly. We knew now. We were learning, at least, getting faster, as she had said. I put the box back on the shelf. The numbers had been speaking all along, patient and precise. The way good numbers are, the way good things are that are worth waiting for, even when the waiting is longer than it should have been. I had been a slow reader, but I had gotten there, and the box on the shelf was full of 11 years of proof that I had always been moving in this direction, one unread letter at a time, toward the morning in March in a study full of botanical illustrations when everything I had been too careful to say finally found its way simply and directly out loud.